And now I am so excited to tell you about today's speaker, David Pearlman. David Pearlman is the Director of Modern Workplace for Microsoft US Education. He has worked a variety of roles over the last 20 years at Microsoft. The last 10 years have been in educating, working with some of the largest universities, healthcare research, and statewide initiatives in K through 12 programs. Previously, David was Director of Security and Mobility for Education. He worked in the energy and banking sectors in the United States Army. He is a graduate of the Army School of Communication and SUNY Oswego. David is an avid skier, has been a professional ski instructor for 25 years. In addition, David is married and has 3 children, the oldest a sophomore at SUNY Geneseo. David has been involved in many philanthropic and volunteer organizations, including ALS, MDA, Wounded Warrior, and has helped fund scholarships opportunities at SUNY Oswego. And with that, please help me in joining and welcoming David Pearlman.
Hello, nice to be part. So thanks so much for coming. I'm going to turn on some video. Thank you, Colleen. And to kick it off, so there's going to be a number of us that are going to be speaking today. My name's David Pearlman. With us today will also be Michael Barbado, as well as Kimberly Engel. We're each going to spend 10 or 15 minutes. We want to make this interactive, right? So I find oftentimes as I start some of these presentations, how did people oftentimes come in very seriously, how did you wind up where you were? And, it takes a village, right, sometimes, and you have these broad networks of people. What I want to do first is just using some of the Microsoft technology that's kind of cool. I'm going to start up this presentation. Please, Oswego team, if you can let me know that you're seeing this in full. So give me 1 second here. We'll start subtitles, and we will start. So let me know if you can see that in full screen. Perhaps.
We can see it. It's not in the presentation mode, but we can see it on the screen.
Okay, it's not in presentation mode. It'll get there, I promise you. It should. How about that? Can you make that okay? Or not so much? Anyways, I'm gonna keep going. Eventually, it'll catch up. So this is some Microsoft technology. Eventually, we'll start getting subtitles, and you'll start seeing them on the screen. Michael, are you seeing these?
So Dave, I see your presentation screen where your notes are on the side.
Yeah, we see the presenter view, David.
You're seeing the presenter view. Okay. Love it when these things happen perfectly. Well, we'll see if we can adjust this. This is not showing up full screen. I'm taking it. All right. We'll see if we can get out of this eventually. All righty. Or we may just leave this as is. So this is some Microsoft technology. If you would like to listen to this or see this in some other language other than English, take your phone, take a snapshot of that QR code, and you can choose Spanish, French, Hindi, any number of other languages. I'm going to get out of the screen because it looks like we're not presenting well. So I want to make sure that this is a good interactive opportunity. So it looks like since I don't use Zoom every day, I shared out whole screen. This is a little bit easier for everyone to see. So how's that? Can you see that a little better?
Yes, you're good now, David. But it's not in the presentation mode, but it is back to the PowerPoint.
We are back to the PowerPoint. I'm wondering if I didn't share out my, it's saying I'm sharing out my whole screen. Well, we'll do the best we can. So please, Microsoft team, let me know if you can see this okay. So why don't we get on with it? So oftentimes we will have these wonderful opportunities to engage with students. And so in my role, I actually live in upstate New York. I live in the town of Penfield, New York, outside of Rochester. You see these little glossies and okay, here's where this person came from and here's what they did. Not that long ago, well, it's longer than I like to admit. I was sitting in the same chair that you're sitting in, and so don't tell anybody, Kimberly, but this was me from 19 something. And I actually started my college career off at Tompkins County Community College, so TC3 down near Dryden, New York. It was so long ago, they even put your social security number on your ID, and that might have almost been a mullet. So I don't know how, if that has any meaning for anybody here, but listen, you never know where you're going to wind up. And sometimes a lot of different things will lead you to where you're at. And so in this current role, I'm responsible for working with a broad set of team members as well as schools. So, the whole State University of New York system, University of I don't know, Rochester and Cornell and a bunch of places down in the city and around the Northeast. I've gotten to travel all over the world. I think I'm up to about 26 countries. I used to do a lot of consulting for Microsoft, but you never know what experiences you're going to have today that's going to lead you to where you're going to be. So just keep that in mind, right? As you get the opportunity to have new experiences, really embrace them and think about not only what are the skills that you're gaining, but where might those people go moving forward. And so some of the things that we like to think about as we're thinking about our experience and some of the trends that are out there. So when I'm looking to hire people, right? And so I'm not necessarily a people manager every day, right? I do a lot of strategy. I talk to people with big titles at lots of large universities, healthcare institutions. Given what we've just come out of from a pandemic standpoint, we're really looking at people that have the ability to work virtually and build connections. So you'll see me be fairly animated in some of these discussions. I'm not sure how I'm doing, Colleen, but I'm going to certainly try. And so that's the new work area, right? And it's the same way even as you have those opportunities to collaborate with people. What does your collaboration quotient look like? Really, how are you finding ways to connect in a really short time period using video, using audio, using presentations? I use a lot of humor. As I go through my day, it's the only way that keeps me really moving. So when you're a student, if you're a junior, if you're a senior, if you're in the business school, you're a finance major, or maybe you're going to be a teacher, right? Trying to figure out how can you take those experiences and lead to a career. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do when I was a junior transfer student, by the way, coming into Cornell and coming into SUNY Oswego, but I did know that I knew where a lot of the folks that would be looking for jobs. So student services was one of those areas, right? So career services down in the Compass Center. I was pretty passionate about kind of some of my life experiences and being able to help. So when you find those opportunities, right, to provide thought leadership within your community, what are some of those community-based outcomes, right? This is a community-based outcome. Hey, we're educating you a little bit around what Microsoft looks like for people to hire. A lot of the other trends that we're seeing in terms of people that are coming to Microsoft are having a social impact, right? Hey, I have 40 years ahead of me to work or longer. I want to feel like I'm doing some good. So what are the things that I'm doing in my job that have an impact? And you saw from a little bit of my bio, I do a lot of things with military and wounded ward and a number of other areas. But it's really great when you get that immediate feedback, right? Hey, thanks for helping that, with that connection, or hey, thanks, that conversation helped me land another job, or hey, I was able to improve the lives of some of our customers because now all of a sudden they could deliver healthcare, right? So one of the institutions that a lot of us worked with was Stony Brook Medical Center, and we were able to take them from doing very, very little virtual health care visits to doing, I think in the last 9 months now, they've done 100,000, right? So that's a pretty cool thing to do when, one of the doctors is telling you what an impact they had, and they're almost in tears. They're telling the impact that your team and organization had. Additionally, right, being able to solve complex problems and really ruthlessly prioritizing what are those outcomes. At Microsoft, we are super busy, like a lot of, you know the names that are kind of in this space. There's always something else going on. Somebody else always wants some of your time. And so really trying to focus on what are your priorities, right, for the customers that you're working with or whatever your roles are, trying to figure out what does success look like for everybody that's involved and really staying ruthlessly focused on some of those initiatives. Lastly, just that ability to work in a matrixed organization. So all the Microsoft team members, Mike Barbado and Kimberly, we all report to different people at Microsoft, right? So our food chains meet up probably somewhere around a vice president or a corporate vice president, but we all know what our mission is, right? And so for everybody that's in education, it's really, helping all of our, the staff, faculty, and students really accomplishing more, right? And that's kind of a boiled down version of what the rest of Microsoft version is. But here's what I'd leave you with, right? As you're thinking about your experiences, when you're a junior, when you're a sophomore, not everybody knows what they want. If you're going to be an accounting major, okay, I'm going to go work for one of the big 5 regional, regional players, or I'm a local accounting agency, or I want to go into corporate finance. That's a pretty well-defined career path. Hey, I want to be a mechanical engineer. I want to be a teacher. But, for a lot of us that are business majors, or we're communications majors, or we're marketing majors, there's a lot of different paths. So I was a business major at SUNY Oswego, and I think I had a minor in economics. Originally, I wanted to do a dual thing in computer science and business, but at the time we didn't have all the access to everything, so you had to go to one particular place that isn't even on campus anymore, and you'd be sitting in the basement doing computer programming. I did that for a semester, and I'm like, this is not what I want to be doing. So here are some of the other things that we look at, right? And so again, I live in upstate New York, right? Although I cover some things nationally. So school leadership will come to me and say, hey, what are the things that I need to do besides some of those trends you were looking at in terms of skill sets? And yes, this is a plug for Microsoft. I still work at Microsoft, and I want to see you immensely successful. And so this is a little bit of our landscape, right? So when I go within a 100-mile radius of Syracuse, which is probably encompasses a good number of the people that are maybe looking at this, there's a large downstate contingent as well that goes to SUNY Oswego from Long Island and maybe a little bit more the metro area, but look at the number of jobs. So if you can become familiar with some of the Microsoft platforms in terms of Office, Excel, PowerPoint, these things are discreetly called out in these jobs, right? Within the Syracuse area. So I have people that come back to me and say, hey, remember that you helped me set up, kind of like a little proof of concept for one of our student groups on some of the Microsoft technologies that actually got me a job, right? So these are, my daughter's now a junior, and that's a little out of date at SUNY Geneseo. Some of these skills really do matter, right? And these are some of the things that we're looking for. So over the next, 30 minutes or so, I'm going to turn it over, I think, to Kimberly. Next, I believe, was on our list. Ask questions. Any questions so far, Colleen or Krisha? I'll take.
No, everything's looking good so far. Thanks so much for the information.
Awesome. So we'll come back to this in a little bit. I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly, but listen, take advantage of those things that you have around you, right? Talk to the people, talk to your professors, try to find internships. It'll make such a difference when you go out into the job market and try to figure out really what it is that you want to do. And it's probably not going to be a job that you're going to have for the rest of your life, right? But it'll be a step to a step. So without further ado, I'm going to send it over to Kimberly.
Cool. Thanks, David. All right, everyone can hear me. Hi, everyone. Just came off camera saying hello here. I don't have any formal slides. I think there was a headshot one I gave to David or to Karisha. But I'll say hello first. And I hope that my experience and my background can give all of you who are attending today or be watching this later, hope for the future. I first off want to let you know, I am also an upstate girl by nature. I am from the Albany area, actually. So SUNY Albany, all SUNY Plattsburgh, SUNY Oswego, Buffalo, Geneseo. I didn't go to these schools. I'll be honest, first and foremost. So I'm not a student or an alumnus of any of those campuses, but all of my best friends that I grew up with, everyone that I just named, I have a friend that I grew up with that went to one of those schools. So I love SUNY. I love everything SUNY does. I have family members who went to SUNY. So I love it first and foremost. And the state of New York, it's my heart. So I'm here with that. But a little bit more intentionally, I want to let you know a little bit about my background. David was mentioning teachers before. I'm a former teacher who now works for Microsoft, and I work in Microsoft education, and I really empower schools in the New York City area in particular, because that's where I used to teach down in the city. But I do a lot of interesting things, and I hope that just hearing a little bit about my journey from a classroom, someone who, when I was in college myself, I didn't even know I wanted to be a teacher then. I was 21 or 22 and panicking that I didn't have it figured out. This was over about 10 years ago, actually. And I hope anyone who's listening and maybe wondering, especially given what the pandemic has thrown at you, still have hope. I didn't know, and I didn't even have a pandemic that was thrown at me. I was just kind of lost. But here I am 10 years later out of college, and I'm really proud that I have found a path, one that I did not expect, and one that has continued to change on me. So I guess that's the overview. Oh, look at, there's my face. But yeah, so what I do now is I am an EDU sales specialist with the retail store in Microsoft. We've changed so much in the past few months, and I will touch on that, but I kind of want to like backtrack and kind of work up to where I am. But again, I come from the CUNY schools and some of the New York City schools. That's where I've gotten a lot of my education, but I do a lot of activism as well on the side. So a little bit about me, but again, if you're in this position of what does the future look like, and it's hard to navigate because everything's so unknown, I just promise, just if you're willing to reskill, and that's something that has happened a lot to me this year, having to reskill. But I guess the main thing I want to get to is I didn't know what I was doing in my young 20s. I was bouncing all over. I'll be honest with you all. I wasn't always happy, but I found a passion for education. I started doing, part-time at night with CUNY Hunter College, got my teaching degree. I was working in schools, worked my way up, and I taught elementary for a few years, and really, really proud of what I was able to do there. But, I got to a point where I said, for me personally, how do I shift again? I was now kind of in my late 20s, and I was having this feeling that being in the classroom, it was fulfilling in many ways for me, but I wanted to find something, just how can I impact this industry on a larger scale? And that was kind of the first time. And in our retail Microsoft language, we use the word pivot a lot. And it's like, I played basketball growing up. So if I had to pivot, if any of you do sports, and you just have to shift, right? You have to shift and you have to do something different. So I thought about that analogy, and I found a way into Microsoft education, and it has been such a blessing. And I've really only been here for about a year and a half now, just about. And what a whirlwind. I went from inside the classroom, and here I was now working for one of the biggest tech major corporations in the world, something that I grew up with. And now I have a chance to, at first I was just training schools, and it was, New York City, tons of schools, hundreds and hundreds of contacts I made, walking them into a retail store, and our business model of providing training, but also come to a store. And, you go retail, you want to spend money. It's like consumer goods. But we had a business team as well. And I learned a lot of things that I never thought I would see myself doing as someone who came from the classroom. And that was magical for about 6 months. And now we're in March 2020. And I think at this point, we all know where we were in March 2020, which is we're almost coming up on a year now. And everything shut down. And the first time I had to face this word of reskilling, it was March 2020. And we're a retail store. And as you all know, everything shut down. We had to close. And all of a sudden, of course, I work on a computer all day, but I was going into a workplace. I was engaging with people face to face. And now all of a sudden, every school that is in the city, in the States, in the country, is trying to figure out how the heck do we, as educators, teach students online? How do we teach the young ones? How do we teach the high school? How do we teach the higher ed students like yourselves? So that it was such I thought I made one pivot coming to Microsoft, but then the pandemic threw a whole other curveball at me. And the first thing I really had to do was find out, well, how do I train everyone? How do I train hundreds of people at once? In Microsoft, we don't always use Zoom, but we're on Teams, and we were showing teachers, here are all the skills you need. This is brand new. This is really hard on you. But with my background, having been in the classroom, it worked really well. And I was training thousands of teachers from the New York City public school system in April and May, when the pandemic was at like the heart of it in New York City. And it was a wild ride, but the good feeling of me giving back to at least make those teachers' day-to-day struggles a little bit easier, learning a new skill, learning about accessibility tools, or just honestly, sometimes in the beginning, teachers didn't even know how to share their screen. And, as students yourselves, you probably, the first few times you were in Zoom, you probably saw some professors and others kind of struggling with that. But hopefully by now you've seen some growth and we're doing better here. But giving back to the industry in that way in the beginning of the pandemic really, really made a difference in my life. And I can't emphasize that enough. And it almost in a lot of ways made that first pivot coming to Microsoft from teaching worth it, like just so beyond worth it than anything I could have ever dreamed of. And I don't know if I hope that this makes sense, but I felt that impact. And I share this with you because I want you to understand that this was nothing like I had ever imagined. And yet I was doing it. There's another phrase we use in our store teams. We perform while we transform. Means we go above and beyond and we figure out new things while we are literally transforming into something new. It's kind of to that reskilling, I guess, advice or journey that I'm on. And, I was doing that for a few months. And then in the summer, my managers came to me and they said, Kimberly, can you do another pivot? Can you do this again? And it was a whole other ballgame. I was leaving training and it kind of, leaving that a little bit. And I was now just focusing on how do I help our sales teams make an impact in schools? How can we help connect with schools to make sure that they get the best affordable technology that Microsoft has to offer? And that's another time that happened in like the late summer. And the next thing I knew, I'm now connecting with the IT directors and teams of universities in the city, of the public school system in the city. And, I'm not as involved as much in upstate areas, but I was also asked to help all of our Northeast store teams succeed in this as well, as they're covering their own territories. And it was a special assignment. And I, there's a lot to it, but the just in, a year and a half, how much I've been reskilling and figuring things out and trying new things and ultimately truly performing while transforming. None of it is any of what I've set out to do, but it has felt like it has been the right journey for me. And, I see a couple questions here I guess I can address, but I just want to keep re-emphasizing that it is first, okay, you don't have to have everything figured out as you are entering senior year of college or as you're graduating this new semester, whatever it is, your path will come to you. Sometimes you just have to live your life, even in the middle of a pandemic. We are still living our lives and finding a way to tread through the waters. But it all works out for a reason. And I hope a little bit about what I've shared just gives you that hope during some of these really hard times that we've been through. So let me pause there. I guess, are there questions or anything I can address for y'all?
I always have questions, Kimberly. You're not going to get away that easy. So the first one that's the most important, what instrument do you play? I didn't know that you played an instrument.
I do.
Musical instrument.
I am a trumpet player and I am captain. So
Wow.
I'm pretty good. I do. I mean, in non-pandemic times, we march in pride parades all over the Northeast.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm a mean trumpet player, so y'all should watch out for our band.
We learn something new every time, right?
Yes,
and so
we were actually, just one last nugget there. We were actually just featured. We did a socially distanced performance for the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade a couple months ago. So if any of you saw that, I was in there. It was pretty great.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
you came in through, you were hired by the store originally and then started working in Microsoft Education, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So we used to have couple hundred global stores. We have consolidated those other than a couple of our flagship stores, I think, correct?
Yep.
So talking about change, right, and that ability to have resilience, that ability to be able to adapt, right? So you see some of these things coming out. We didn't pre-plan all these stories, right? So I talked about the trends that we're looking for. So again, I'm, another knucklehead trying to figure out my way through life. And, I think Kimberly, you did a wonderful job. I don't know if you keyed off those when you're thinking about what you're talking about, but, it really talked to resilience. It talked about being able to transform, being able to embrace that change, right? And so this is kind of your third role-ish at Microsoft as it's been redefined. After as long as I've been at Microsoft, I'm not even going to tell you how many different roles I've had. But here's the interesting part, right? So the other thing that people ask is, how do we get hired at Microsoft? Listen, I had some jobs and I worked in management for a company that was Microsoft bought, right? So I'm not sure if I'm smart enough to get in here, but I've managed to stay here. We have something called the Microsoft Aspire program, ASPIRE. I would strongly take a look at that, right? And it's competitive, right? I'm not saying it's not competitive to come work here. We hire people that are of extremely diverse backgrounds, way more than we used to. I am ashamed to say that probably even up until 5 or 6 years ago, we had a pretty homogenous in terms of who we hired, how we hired, what our hiring process looked like. It's every background that you can think of, from teachers to people that are just coming out of college. Internships are important. If you're looking to get into the high-tech industry, find something local. even if it's, working at Best Buy or whatever. These things all make a difference, right? Being able to speak with customers. The other part that you should look at is we also have the Microsoft Ambassador Program. And so I don't think we have one at Oswego, but we do it like Cornell and Syracuse, where we actually will pay some amount, a stipend, and people get to talk about Microsoft things across campus. So I guess we have some time for a couple of questions, and we'll turn it over to Mike. So thank you, Kimberly. That's great.
Yep. We'll repeat the program name. It's Microsoft Aspire. I'm just going to drop it into the chat there. I don't have the link on me, but I'm sure we can find it as the next panelist comes on, and I can drop that for you to learn more. I just want to give a shout out to the attendee talking about OneNote. Yes, I love that. Yes, we are here for that. And thank you all for the comments and everything. There was another question I saw. I guess I'll answer this as I wrap up here. One thing I could wish I could tell myself as a student to better prepare myself as I launch my career. Oh goodness, the list is too long. But I guess the core to that from my end would be not to be too hard on myself. I was in my young 20s expecting really and truly to have everything figured out, but to remember that you all, especially your generation, you have these digital skills that are inherently ingrained in your bodies and souls because you were born into a culture that had them. I think I was the last generation that had the old and the new, but you guys are inherently born with these skills. You can walk into interviews and show some folks how to do things differently, and don't ever be afraid to. And I really truly mean that. And don't be so hard on yourself either. And that's what I got for that. So thank you all for the time. I appreciate it. And back to you, David.
Awesome. If you want to put that in the chat panel with the Aspire program as well as the Microsoft Ambassador Program, those are great ways to get into Microsoft. And I just wanted to add, right, 5 years ago, we'd hire people from MIT, Harvard, Cornell, Stanford, University of Washington, right, and those kind of names. We are hiring people from so many different backgrounds under our CEO for the last few years, Satya Nadella, that it's really been turned kind of into this global, on my team, the immediate folks that I work with are probably from 5 different countries, a bunch of different orientations. Very few of them all sound or act like me, which is probably a good thing, except for Michael, who's coming on next. Was there any other questions in the queue?
There was one more question, David. It says, you mentioned you had several roles at Microsoft over your career there. What challenges did you find in general with those transitions, and how did you overcome those challenges?
So my job is always when I'm doing live speaking and it's being recorded is not to get fired at Microsoft, right? And so I will answer as candidly as I always can, which, I just, again, I think it's really important as you go out and look at what it is that you want to go do. You may not always, the door that you think is ahead of you may not be the one that you decide that you're going to take. And so what I have found as I've gotten a little, a little more gray and a few other things, probably for the last 10 years, the best advice I've followed is I go to work for people. I don't go to work for jobs, for the next job title, for the next whatever. Those things will come if you're doing the right thing. And so very early in my career, and a number of years out of SUNY Oswego, I had the opportunity to work for this person that was moving up extremely quickly. And I was traveling 3 weeks a month and had gotten married and had a young child. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Hey, I'm in Paris this week, and then I'm in Frankfurt 3 days later, and then I'm in Hong Kong, and then I'm flying to the West Coast and I'm flying home. That sounds exciting for a little while, but there's a cost to that. So when you see folks that, have followed a particular career path, right, there's always noise, right? When you have that much, that much energy. And so I became really close with the people that I worked with. There was a team of 25 people, and I was basically in charge of a bunch of escalations at Microsoft. For me, it wasn't worth it, right? And so trying to figure out what's most important for you, and, you got to take them in different order, right? Faith, for me, faith, family, and work, and different times, those two different, they may have different priorities. But, if any one of those is too much in front of, faith or family or whatever, if work becomes in front of those other two too often, you may want to rethink about what it is that you're prioritizing. So now I follow the person that I want to go work for. So I find those people out, I solicit their advice, I get to know them. So when there's an opening, I go and work for those people, because a job's a job, right? You'll make it fun because of the people you're working with and the outcomes that you'll have. So that's the best advice I could offer. Excellent. All righty. So moving on, Michael, I'm going to give you control of the screen. If there's not any more, hopefully that answered the questions, Krisha. Kirsch, I'm sorry, I probably
Yes. No, you're
massacred your
good.
name. Dang it
It's
all.
fine.
So
But
I'll
we're
turn it
good
over
for
to
right now.
Michael Barbado, and Mike, you have about maybe 12 minutes.
Great. Okay, I know you can hear me, but for some reason I can't turn on my video. It says the host has stopped video. So that's okay. We can, unless somebody can unlock that, I'll just continue.
Did you log in as a presenter or as a?
Oh, there we go. Start my video.
Michael looks a lot like me, except with glasses. Here, hold on. I will.
Much better looking, and my college picture is better too. There you go. All right. Let me share. Give me just 1 second. I'll go to full screen. Let me see if I can do this better than Dave.
I have a 52-inch monitor in front of me that doesn't behave real well on Zoom for various reasons. Teams, it does fantastic though.
I have 3 monitors, so hopefully I'll pick the right one here.
I do have them loaded in a deck if you'd just like me to present, Michael.
I think I got it.
I'm not sure about this.
You're not sure? See anything yet?
Nope. All right, would you like me to share?
Go ahead.
All righty. So there you go. You're good.
All right. So a little about me, and I'm going to stick with the themes that you've heard so far, which is, you never know where your path will lead you, and try to do what you have passion for. And like Dave said, working with people and finding your path to something that has meaning for you is key. So quick little background about me. I'm also a Central New Yorker. I'm born and raised in Syracuse, New York. Other than a few years in the New York, New Jersey area, I've been here most of my career. 16 years at Microsoft with various roles. And it is funny. So I'm a Lemoyne grad. I started out as biology major, went to accounting, and recognized pretty quickly my first role after college was at Toyota Corporation. I had an automotive background. I actually worked in automotive field while I was at Lemoyne, and found pretty quickly that accounting was not for me, and really gravitated toward the systems and the software side of that business. So you just never know where your path's going to take you. Just continue to learn, increase your network, and try to do things that are interesting to you. So that's just a little on me. I've been at Microsoft 16 years, but I also work for VMware and Cognizant Technologies. And today I'm the account technology strategist for education here in the Northeast. So I cover some K through 12 districts. I cover all the higher ed across the state, academic, medical, and research. We'll go to the next slide, Dave.
I think you're sharing off your screen, Michael.
Oh, cool.
I was able to do a remote fix from here.
That works. Are you able to see that screen okay?
Yep, looks great.
Is it large enough?
It's fine.
All right. So what I wanted to just say here on this is, we've learned to take some of the missions of our company and turn those to, we're given enough latitude to kind of do the work that we think is important and drives transformational changes in our community that align with our mission as a company. So I just kind of outlined, our mission statement to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more, our vision statement, some of our core values. And if you see our core values, we're we're kind of blessed to work for a company that cares about these things too. So, innovation, trustworthy computing. I'll say there's a lot of importance to some of these things as you go to work every day, feeling good about working for a company that protects people's privacy. Our economic engine, I'll say, allows us to protect people's privacy. We're not an ad-driven, revenue-based company. Diversity, inclusion, and our social responsibility and environmental. So it's great to go to work every day feeling good about the company you work for. So I'll say that. And then I think it leads into the next piece, the next slide, which I'll talk about a little story that, during this pandemic, we talked about everything changed overnight. My team, which Dave is part of, and we have an extended team, and as Kimberly said, the store team was a big part of helping out the community. So this story was really about the Syracuse City School District, where we found early on they weren't really ready for this change that came about, almost a year ago. So we kind of all pulled together and helped them get to a point where they could do remote teaching and learning. Most of their solutions at that point in time were on-prem, not in the cloud, really not extensible, and didn't offer this anywhere, anytime access to technology. They had a large group of students that didn't have any technology or bandwidth, and we were able to create a learning environment for them through Teams, through a secure access, because that's a big part of our core values, as well as security. And as you know, during this pandemic, a lot of bad actors have taken advantage of hacking environments for teaching and learning. So security was a big part of it. And then just the business intelligence for making sure that students were on the right path, that they were actually learning, that they were engaged, that they weren't being left behind. So it was a really great community effort that we all were involved in. It ties back to our core values. And I would just say that, empowering people and reducing what we call the digital divide was a big part of our mission there. And like I said, it's just kind of nice to find a career path where you feel like you're giving back and you're doing some meaningful work. So I'll
Awesome.
just pause there for any questions or comments.
So Mike, what do you do in a typical day? What's the most exciting thing you do on kind of a day-to-day or weekly basis that keeps you excited about what you're doing?
I think it's really when you see the results of that. It was a pretty busy 11 months that we had with the pandemic, helping higher ed and K-12 organizations deliver and actually be able to teach. I think when you look back, it's pretty rewarding to see what you've accomplished. And we, some of these student performance metrics that we found that, some students were actually excelling during this time, which is kind of surprising, right?
Which is amazing, right? So the initial research, right, that is taking place right now is that where done correctly, some students are at certain schools are actually performing very near to where they were in the previous scenarios, right? Where it was either, all on-prem or, synchronous versus asynchronous. And there's a number of different terms there, but in-person learning versus kind of this asynchronous learning that's kind of taking place in SUNY. We have a couple of questions and, feel free, Mike, if you want, you can stop showing that. And if you want to come on video and feel the same, Kimberly. Couple of questions. What advice would you give students going into the workforce to help them stand out during the hiring process? Any specific skill sets and/or attributes that you're looking for? And so I listed a number of those earlier in the thing, but I'd like to highlight those again. Mike, you remember what I said? There's a quiz. You get a donut later if you answer them correctly. I mentioned 6 of them. Let's see who was paying attention. Ability to work virtually and build connections, strong collaboration quotient, right? So being able to work with others. Kimberly had that one. I saw her raise her hand because she pays attention to me, Michael. Providing thought leadership on community-based outcomes, right? So if you can find these opportunities that you're personally aligned with, man, it makes life pretty easy. Soft skills, right? Complex problem solving, ruthless prioritization, and the ability to work in a matrixed organization. True or false, Michael? Do you have a family member that's going to Oswego?
True.
See? We're not going to name her name so somebody can harass her about her dad. But so those skills, right? Listen, find those opportunities. I'm telling you, sophomore, junior year, start trying to line internships. I mean, there's tons of great work that the SUNY Oswego team does. Find out if it's even something you want to do. Hey, I'm going to be a major in accounting. Mike hated accounting. He was miserable. Look at him. He's a happy guy now. He's a little stressed, but he's miserably stressed in a good way, right? So he likes that. The other thing is, don't be afraid to, go on LinkedIn. And I had a bunch of SUNY students who've done it over the last, couple of years. I would say go out on LinkedIn and, befriend every one of us or connect with, Michael and Kimberly. And, sometimes I have time, sometimes I don't, right? There was a gentleman, and I forget his name, that wanted to talk early in the week, and my schedule's out usually a couple of weeks this time of year. But, I'm happy to try to connect, or if I can, have some time. I usually come on campus twice a year. I don't think that's going to happen this year. And then also find out who are those influencers, right? So if you're working in Syracuse, what are the companies that are growing, right? You'd be amazed. People love talking about themselves. Just look at us 3, right? And try to pick their brains of the things that are most interesting. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Let's see what else. We had question all panels, helping with education, interacting with different people in groups. Love to hear about transferable skills, if any student plans change from degree to career. I'm going to let you take that one, Kimberly.
Cool. I just posted a comment that I think can speak to this. So let me just find that. Transferable skills. I'm going to go with what I just posted, soft skills, because the technical certifications, do you know this script code? What technical things can you do? That'll always be there. But at the same time, the skills you're building and people managing and how you work well with others and how are you a leader, it's like that group project syndrome. Are you the student that lets the kind of captain do everything? Trust me, that captain is going to be talking the fact that they know how to lead and they know how to delegate. And if you can provide examples of how you co-lead, how you delegate, how you work with others that sometimes can be challenging, that's going to be a huge make or break difference. I can't emphasize enough that they are soft skills, but at the same time, the world we're living in, everything's cloud-based. We have to all look at each other's work, and we all have to communicate and be in these meetings and share presentations. And just like we're doing here, we all have to contribute. So I would say to you, in the clubs you're in the group projects you have done, in the activities that you do for volunteering, where are the ways that you show your soft skills and your leadership? Because you should be talking that up till the cows come home. That is a deal that is going to make or break a huge opportunity for you, because if you are, on the same page as somebody else who has the same technical certifications, or you did this course, you did that, what's the difference maker? And I'm going to tell you, it's like, how are you a human that can lead, and how are you working well with others? And that's transferable, whether you're doing accounting, tech, education, business. I mean, you name it. You got to have people skills, folks. So that's my answer to that.
Thank you, Kimberly, for that great input. And I find, right, when you have that ability, right, so I've been working on this. Hey, how do we present well? And Kimberly, you've heard me present more than a couple of times, right? So I sit up straight in my chair. And so for me now, this presentation skills, you can give me 10 bullets and I'll get up in front of a group of executives or whoever the audience is, and I will speak for an hour to 2 hours if I need to about it. Consuming a lot of information, understanding how that's organized, and then being able to take really complex things. And I talked about this before, complex problems, make them other people's priorities, so they want to work with you and help solving those problems. And oftentimes when I come into a situation, I'm called in because there's a challenge or there's a problem where we can't make things work, and trying to find out that middle ground. And so when we talk about career, right, and again, very transparently, Michael had left Microsoft and then had come back, and there was an opportunity in education. He said, you know what, Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, you signed in as David Pearlman, by the way. There's two of us. I'm the one raising my hand right now.
Nice.
Maybe we're instant twins. You actually made a comment to me, and it made a difference when we were interviewing you, because I think I was in that initial interview loop to come into education. You know, why do you want to come into education? And what was your answer to that? And this was not that long ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah, no, I think it was more to have an impact on people's lives and do work that was, meaningful to me. So that was really my driver for getting back here and working in education.
So the commercial side of the business at Microsoft, right? These are, all these jobs have their own stresses. It doesn't matter where you're at, right? If you're the student intern working at the front desk, for the registrar's office, or if you're working over at the health set, at what is it, the Mary Walker Health Center, or your part-time job is taking tickets at, when Oswego beats Plattsburgh for the SUNY championships, or Geneseo this last year. But anyways, every job has its own stresses. So trying to figure out what it is that's going to make it fun for you and rewarding, I think is just so important. And that's hard to do sometimes when we have to pay rent and pay food and we have student loans. And listen, that stuff doesn't get any easier. What I can tell you is that Michael was very focused on, hey, I've seen what you've done in education. There were a couple of other peers that were working, and Michael basically, he won that interview loop by kind of his passion of what he was doing. We knew he had the business acumen. We knew that he was smart. We knew that, and he was competing against some people that had honestly more experience at an executive leadership level. And Mike's been a phenomenal partner in the business. Kimberly, I always learn something from her and a couple of the folks that she works with, right? So just trying to take that time to understand what it is you want to do. You may not know, that's okay. Go out and experiment a little bit. Your first job isn't going to be the one you're going to have forever, but don't wait till it's April and you're getting ready to graduate, right? If you haven't, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but it's January. Start thinking now, right, about what it is that you want to do. It's not like, I think, are most people still remote at Oswego, or is it kind of asynchronous right now in terms of learning and student population?
As of right now, it's a little bit of both, I guess you can say, but mostly remotely for staff, at least.
See, now I'm going to put my parent hat on, right? I was paying for my daughter to live off campus as a junior, and I'm like, you could do that from Rochester. It's not that far. No, Dad, I can't live with all you guys. It's too hard. I think that there's a lot of time in the course of the day to go make, take that time to find out, who's hiring in your area. What are some of your, the people that just graduated a year or two ago? The Alumni Association is wonderful at that. The student is Gary Morse is still the director for career services, I believe, correct? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Yep. Get yourself in that damn office. It's not that hard, or get online. They do some wonderful things in terms of helping you with your resume, your online presence, right? Social media. If you have silly things out on Facebook, Instagram, I can tell you the first thing that we all go do when we're interviewing somebody is we look at those things. We really do, right? I have a TikTok account. I have a LinkedIn account and a Facebook account and a bunch of other things. Start thinking about, what does your social media presence look like? Take care of the obvious things, right? It's great that you love to go drink beer in, Barbados or something. That's fine, but don't do anything too silly, right? So start cleaning that up now, because people will go look at that. So hopefully this was helpful. Let's see, we have a couple of more questions. Okay, Kimberly's making some more recommendations. So I think we're running up on the hour here. I don't know, Kimberly, would you be willing to share your email in case somebody has a question or something? Would you mind?
Yeah, of course. And I'll get on my LinkedIn plug. I was just typing about it. Get on LinkedIn, everyone. You can work on your resume, build your brand. You can follow industries, individuals, famous CEOs, us. You can even find us, folks, right on LinkedIn. And just start growing your professional brand. You don't have to have your job yet if you're graduating, but you can certainly get on the market and start seeing what's out there. LinkedIn does amazing work in this field. So that is my That is my speech on LinkedIn, but go for it. And
that is a Microsoft property. But
yes.
you know, you're more than welcome to see. You know, one of the things that I do is things like this for about. I run a community of about 1,500 educators and education technology leaders, and these are healthcare folks. So every Thursday at 4 o'clock, I kind of do this. It's a little tongue in cheek, and then we usually have a speaker. You know, connect with me on LinkedIn, and if you want to sit in on a couple of those, I'll get you an invite to that. I would just ask it to be extremely respectful. If you show up and kind of do it in a listen mode, and it's, you know, if you're interested kind of in the technology things, then it'd be great. So really, Oswego team, thank you very much. Michael and Kimberly, thanks so much for participating in my madness with the Oz family. That means Oswego, the cool way to say it.
Thanks for having us. This is great.
Again, thank you all so much for participating, and especially a huge thank you to David, Michael, and Kimberly for sharing your story and inspiring us all. But for everyone else, we hope to see you all tonight at the Imagine 2021 day session with Paloma Sarkar at 7 p.m. See the link in the chat, and thank you everyone once again, and have a great evening.